Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck. Whew, we made it through that first segment. I'm on fire. Well, now guess what? We have a pastor. He's going to put us all on fire right now. I want to welcome to the show Pastor Gus Booth from War Road, Minnesota. Welcome to the show, Pastor.
Hello,
Hi, Pastor.
ladies. Good to
Hello. Hello.
All right, so I understand that, we're going to visit a little bit about the book that you have, but let's first talk about how you became a pastor.
Oh, that's too long of a story. But basically, I grew up in southern Minnesota born in southern Minnesota, raised in Southern California, graduated from high school in Ohio, came to a faith in Jesus in Japan, and then moved up to War Road, Minnesota to pastor this tiny little church that isn't so tiny anymore.
Well, I'm guessing that it's not tiny anymore because you had something to do with that. You bringing the congregation in, bringing people together?
Yeah, I'm quite the hunter-gatherer, I guess.
Okay.
I thought I saw something where what did you start with, like 20 members when you first were starting at the church? Or
Yeah,
were they already established and you came in to pastor at that point?
Yeah, it was a bigger church, but I came in at about 14 actually, and I suppose an average Sunday's attendance is about 150 people now.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Right.
That's fantastic.
Right.
We've had a lot of different pastors or priests on our show, and right now, it's like, it doesn't matter what religion you are, just get back to talking to God again. Our society needs that right now. It's like, it doesn't matter, Catholic, Lutheran, Assembly of God, whatever, evangelical, get to a church because our society needs that. There's so much evil going on right now, and we all have to just band together to get rid of the evil.
Right.
Preach it, that a girl.
Yep.
So what brought you to writing a book, and can you tell us a little bit about this book?
Yeah. A few years ago, I realized that there was two competing federal laws. There was the First Amendment that says we should say whatever we want to say. And then there's this tax code that says that you can only say, or you can't say certain political messages from behind the pulpit. And I thought my freedom of speech didn't stop, especially behind the pulpit. I feel like, our pulpits should be protected religious speech and not, condemned religious speech. So I gave a message that was in violation of IRS tax code. I sent it to the IRS and said, come get me. I did something naughty. And so they did. And then all of a sudden abruptly stopped because I believe they knew that they were wrong. They knew that the First Amendment was more important than their tax code.
Right.
Well, good thing that you weren't up in Canada because they're arresting priests left and right up there during the COVID days.
So is that what you're referring to? Is that the Johnson Amendment? I noticed in your book there was a reference to that. Can you describe that a little bit better for our viewers?
Yeah, the Johnson Amendment was put in Congress as a law when Senator Johnson, before he was president, was a senator from Texas, and he had some political adversaries that he wanted to keep quiet. And so he put in the tax code that if you're a 501c3, then you have to stay quiet about certain moral issues. And he didn't intend for it to lump churches into that, but I believe the enemy of our souls intended for that to happen. And so since that day, pastors can't say certain political or moral issues, 60 days before an election. And I just think that's wrong. And so that's why I decided to fight that. And I didn't know I was going to be writing a book about the thing, but that's what really needed to happen because so many pastors weren't willing to say what the Bible says about moral issues.
And so how did you come up with the title?
It was a friend of mine in town that just talked about, it's really that the devil wants to silence the church. And so it just made sense to me, a little bit of a play on words, hey, be quiet Christian, how the church's message of love is becoming America's message to hate. And that really has been, put on the forefront with, the gay agenda and transgenderism, because if you say anything bad about that, then you are looked at as a hater, and nobody wants to look like as a hater, so they just self-censor themselves and not want to say those things. But the Bible says that we should, as long as we do it without a chip on our shoulder.
Right, right. Speak, truth in love. And it seems like to me with that amendment, it's kind of like, oh, I really don't have to do my homework because the teacher said that if I didn't get it done, she really didn't care, kind of thing. So I'm not going to get my homework done. That's just kind of how human nature is. It's almost like, I think for some of the pastors in some of the churches, do you get the feeling that it's like, well, I don't want to tempt the IRS to come after us, so I'm just not going to say anything. It's just easier this way. Do you kind of get that feeling through the church community that there's some of that?
Yeah, I do. There's a general philosophy or theology in the American pastorate that says, you don't want to offend anybody, with a political message, because you would prefer to preach the gospel to them. And I just prefer to say that the gospel should be taken into politics. And if we don't take the gospel into politics, then politics is going to continue to be corrupt and more corrupt and more corrupt, because the gospel shines the light, and let's bring the gospel everywhere.
Well, and when they're making laws, we were founded on biblical truths, and so when we take the biblical truths off the table, how do you put laws forward that make sense? Because you can't, because you are either building your society or you're splitting your society apart. And it seems like the last several years we've been splitting our society apart. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, that's totally true. But we know that that's going to happen, like the book of Revelation states that we're going to be persecuted everywhere, not just in Saudi Arabia or China, but we're going to be persecuted everywhere. I'm just trying to help it so that it's not persecuted before the time is necessary, right? Like, I want to be able to not go to jail if I can help it. And if we continue to be, just silent about certain moral issues, then the persecution is going to happen quicker. Because anytime evil raises its head, then if it's not met with righteousness, evil is going to just roll over people. And so we just need to stand firm and speak the word of God with a smile on our face and don't have a chip on our shoulder. And it's going to be harder for, the enemy of our souls to convince people that we're so bad if we're just, talking with a smile on our face.
How did we get to where we are right now?
A lack of desire to speak the truth, coupled with many preachers who believe theologically not to be involved in anything political.
We had a guest on just earlier. Was it Monday or was it Friday? Monday, I believe. Was that yesterday already? The days all rolled together. But anyway, he was saying that across the nation they had done a survey, and there's only 3% of all the pastors across the entire nation, with every religion, only spoke out against abortion in 3% of the sermons. Do you find that to be accurate?
Well, I don't know if it's accurate. I hope it's not accurate. My goodness, that's a pretty disgusting thing that we have allowed to take place in our nation. But if our fathers and grandfathers would have elected the officials that wouldn't have appointed judges that thought that demonic behavior was okay, then we wouldn't be in this spot, for goodness sake. But we are, and we seem to continue to elect people that are okay with not even knowing, what the definition of a woman is, if you know what I mean.
Oh, we know.
Yeah.
I do have a question kind of going back to that 501c3 status, the tax-free exempt status that you get for being a church and things like that. So there is some Christian leaders out there like Brandon House, for an example, that has kind of did his own platform and is not tax-free exempt status because he doesn't want to be censored and things like that. And there is some churches out there that do that, not a lot. Would you see that ever, because you're kind of made a point to that you're getting censored by the government because of your status, your exempt status? So I'm just kind of wondering more information on that.
Yeah, that's a super good question. It's really a deception within a deception. So the church is not just tax exempt, they are non-taxable, which is similar but different. So most churches don't have a 501c3 because it costs a couple $1,000s to do it, and they just don't have the money to do it. So they're non-taxable. And so when a church becomes a 501c3, it doesn't mean that they give the government more authority to tell them what to do. The government has authority over churches based upon their geographic location, not based upon their tax exempt or non-taxable status. For example, the Canadian government is not going to try to corral any American churches, or the American government isn't going to try to corral Canadian. So there's a group of Christians that feel like if you're 501c3, then you are somehow in partnership with the government, and now you can't say what you need to say. That's just rubbish. 501c3 isn't any more teeth than any other way that the government is responsible to look after our nation. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. You did say about the geographic location, so there's certain areas that are more, would you say Minnesota? Because they're more of the,
no, I would
is that
just
what
say
you're saying?
in America.
Okay.
The government has authority over American churches, not Mexican churches. Mm-hmm. And just because you become a 501c3, when you go, and that takes you from being non-taxable to being tax exempt, that doesn't mean that they have more authority in your life at all. I think it's a strange deception that people in the body of Christ think 501c3 is a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. There's no more authority that the government has over you with that. And you're talking to somebody who, we are not a 501c3 as a church, because we don't want to spend $5,000 to get a number that isn't going to really benefit us. It's just something that we don't need to do.
Does it open churches up for more grants, like government grants and things like that, if they're 501c3? I don't know.
I don't know about that, but I've been pastoring 21 years, and I've never even heard of another pastor or my own church getting a grant from the government for anything.
Until COVID hit, then everybody got money for everything. So,
yes, but, you're right about that.
Right, yeah. But what do we do to fix it? How do we get more pastors to be willing to step up and speak up? How can we help our congregations become more vocal to help save our state and our country?
That's a great question. This is it. As somebody who goes to a church, all you need to do is ask your pastor to speak on the moral issues that happen to also be political issues. If you can tell, your pastor, like, hey, I've got your back. I'm there to defend you. I want you to lead in this area. I want you to be able to speak the full counsel of the Word of God, not be afraid to do anything. Because pastors, we get afraid too. We just get afraid if I say the wrong thing, then that family's going to leave. And if I say the wrong thing, then this family's going to leave. And if you just rallied around him and said, we got your back, we want you to lead in these moral issues, then he would have a greater propensity to actually do what it is that you're encouraging to do. So that's the way you need to do it.
Right. I heard one pastor say one time, and I thought it was very profound, that he was told, you don't have a money problem, you have a message problem. And I think a lot of pastors are afraid that if they say something offensive, then their offerings are going to go down and they have to pay the bills. And I've heard that time and time again. But yet we are charged biblically with speaking up and speaking truth to power. So yeah, I admire the fact that you wrote that book. And where are people going to get your book? Can you talk more about that a little bit?
I've got a special number. They can just text 218-230-4037. Just text me your name and address, and the staff will take that and they will tell you how to pay for it. And we'll send it right out. 218-230-4037.
And why don't you kind of quickly just summarize the book? What else can they learn in your book?
It tells us the history of the problem, and then real clearly what the problem is and really how to fix it. But I know that ultimately we lose this battle. Ultimately in America, we are going to be persecuted for believing that Jesus is the only way. We really are. There's no way around it. But in the meantime, I don't want to just, lay over and die. I want to be able to preach the gospel without fear of a fine or fear of going to jail. And it's, I believe, books like this that encourage others to stand up and just take the hits from the world, so to speak, instead of, just quietly getting shushed back into our churches. We need to take the gospel outside of the church building and not just inside of the church building. And so this book helps people do that.
Oh, amen to that.
Amen. Yeah.
So
That is
one
wonderful.
one good question for you is, do Christians back down from evil out there?
Yes, they do, but they shouldn't. I mean, when we say that, or when Jesus says, "I've overcome the world," take heart, man, take heart. That means to be courageous, right? That means to stand strong. That means to realize that he that is in you is greater than he is in the world. So when somebody comes after you and is like saying, "Hey, you're a hater because you don't believe that, homosexuality is a viable way to live your life," you can just stand strong in that and say, "Listen, I don't hate that person. I just disagree with their lifestyle. And guess what? I'm allowed to disagree with you without being called a hater. But even if you call me a hater, it's okay. It doesn't change the fact that I'm a lover."
Amen. Amen to that.
Yeah. That's right.
All right.
That's right.
So again, if you want to get his book, just go ahead and text the 218-230-4037 and learn everything you can about, backing down from evil and the function of the church, basically. But we appreciate that. We got 30 seconds. Anything you want to leave our viewers with?
All that's necessary for evil to triumph is for good men and women to do nothing. So stop being do-nothings and start triumphing over evil by standing strong.
Amen to that. Well, thanks again for joining us today, Pastor.